Fasa and you, Dome e Malia Clear. Hello everyone, this is Owen O'Neill from Forest Fasa. Today I'm in Dublin again and I want to do a live to talk to you about the Battle of Rathmines. Now, let me just change as you may, anyone who knows Dublin and they can see what I'm showing, I'm not in Rathmines because the Battle of Rathmines was not fought in Rathmines. It was mainly fought near here on St. Mary's Road, just off Bagot Street. You see that building there? That was Bagot Rat Castle. It was basically fought around there. And the problems of doing a live in the city centre, there's a bloody fire alarm going off. Oh, it's finally stopped, so I can actually move back. There's been an alarm going off for the last 20 minutes from where I actually went to the film, meaning that it was impossible, it's too noisy. So let's move back up. We'll move on to Bagot Street. So, the Battle of Rathmines is not too well known, even though it is in Hayes McCoy's book, Irish Battles. It's basically important because the loss of it, the parliamentarians winning it, meant that Oliver Cromwell was able to land his army here in Dublin in 1649. So, in 1640 until 1647, from 1641 to 1647, the Royalists, we can call them that, under Ormond, held Dublin. In 1647, Ormond handed Dublin over to the parliamentarians under a guy called Michael Jones. It was not a good move, at all. He would later come to regret it. In 1649, Ormond put together an alliance, and this alliance began to win some victories, like it began to capture most of the towns, most of the ports along the east coast, such as Newry, Carlingford, Dundalk, Drogheda. The only major port on the east coast that wasn't in government hands was it was still held by the parliamentarians. They didn't have a particularly big army, so Ormond moved to besiege it. Except throughout this campaign, he was very, very slow. He had a lot of men. I'm just crossing Bagot Street now. He had a lot of men. He outnumbered the parliamentarians at least 2-1. But his whole campaign was extremely lethargic. So eventually, as it was becoming clear that Cromwell would be landing fairly soon, he had to move his troops up. So if you know Dublin, basically on this side of Dublin, the siege lines, the parliamentarians' defences of Dublin, they ran from behind Trinity College along Pear Street to what was then called Lazar Hill, which is now Townsend Street, where there was like an artillery embankment and a fort. The Inchquin, who was at that stage was fighting with Ormond, he captured Ringsend, but neither he nor Ormond did the obvious thing there, which would have been to build an artillery platform which would have cut off Dublin, would have prevented parliamentarians sending reinforcements by sea. And that's actually what happened. So I think it was in July or June 1649, Michael Jones, the commander of Dublin, he received 2,000 foot and 600 cavalry by sea. This essentially was the first part of Cromwell's army. So Ormond had to do something quickly. He had to start moving. He cut off the water to Dublin, which was in Temple Oak, and he was encamped in Rathmines, except he then made a couple of really bad mistakes. Hold on, I'll just leave it pointing the other way. He had 2,500 men, a sizable force on the Lord Dillon camped in Finglas. And then he sent 3 regiments, another 2,000 men or something, down to Munster because they were afraid that Cromwell might land there. And he decided it was time to tighten the siege of Dublin. And you see there, Searson's pub. That's exactly where Bagginroth Castle was. It's 44 and 46. So it's Searson's pub and that little shop beside it. So they had this ruined castle here, and Ormond decided he said he was going to take it and get his men to take it and fortify it. And this would have the advantage of cutting off Jones from being able to use the pasture in front of the city because all of this was green. So Jones would bring his horses out to eat the grass here outside the city. So he decided on a night attack, and he ordered Thomas Preston, who was a well-known general, and I'm not sure if he actually won any battles. I think he actually captured Duncannon Fort, but apart from that, he seems to have been responsible for several defeats. So it wasn't Preston, it was Purcell, was sent on a night march from Rathmines, which is up that way, to capture this castle with about 1,000 men. He was supposed to capture it and then fortify it. However, if you know Dublin, Rathmines to here would be a 20-minute, half an hour walk. If you're carrying heavy equipment, let's say an hour. Somehow or other, Ormond's men got lost, and they only captured the castle early in the morning, probably like 7 o'clock or something. Ormond stayed up all night waiting for news. He came here in the morning and he discovered that they'd only just got there. And he also discovered that it was in a much worse condition than he expected. So he gave orders to deploy his men, and then he did what every good general should never, ever, ever do. He went back to his camp and went to bed, which is kind of obviously something you shouldn't do when a battle is about to start. So in the meantime, the parliamentarians had seen all the movement and they knew something was on. So they had deployed their troops. I think they deployed them behind houses and forts and hills, back that way, behind quite a bit behind Searson's. So remember, all of this was basically from Pearse Street up was open field, with a few probably small houses here and there. So Ormond left the right wing of his army here, and they were deploying when suddenly, around 9 in the morning, they were attacked by the parliamentarians, a surprise attack, and the Ormond's cavalry, who were quite good, they were his lifeguard, his own bodyguard, they got routed fairly quickly and they fled down towards the Dodder, which would have been back down that way, and disappeared up the mountains. The foot tried to stay here, they tried to fight, but pretty soon they too were routed. They were outnumbered and been attacked, taken by surprise. So they fled back up towards the camp in Rathmines, which basically means they would have retreated up this way up. Well, it wasn't Waterloo Road, obviously, but they would have headed in this general direction. So within probably half an hour, let me just get out of the sun. Within probably half an hour, Ormond's right had gone. So the rest of his army, apart from the 2,500 who were on the other side of the city, were up this way. Now, the parliamentarians had probably just set out to disrupt Ormond's maneuvers, but they discovered they had done much better than they expected, so they kept advancing up here. So if you know this area, this is Waterloo Road, and then you get to the bottom of Leeson Street, keep on going, you're in Ranelagh, keep on going, you're in Rathmines, so half an hour walk, more or less. And probably Ormond's troops were deployed a bit closer to Ranelagh than actually Rathmines itself. So off they went. The Ormond's cavalry had already routed, which gave the parliamentarians a great advantage. They were able to move very fast. So basically very soon, say within another hour, the battle, the second part of the battle commenced, in that the parliamentarians were now attacking the remnants of Ormond's army. Ormond, of course, was asleep, so there was no overall command on the Royalist side. So some of the Royalist troops fought very well, but pretty soon it just dissolved into a series of small little battles, and things were going from bad to worse for Ormond. Ormond woke up and realised there was only one thing he could do, which, if it worked, could have changed the battle completely. He sent orders to Lord Dillon, who is somewhere near Finglas with 2,500 men, and ordered him to attack. Since most of the parliamentarians were here, they were attacked in the back. They could have saved the day. Lord Dillon said no. He refused the order and refused to fight. This condemned Ormond to a massive rout. So pretty soon afterwards, the battle was over. Now, one of the interesting things about this battle is a large part of Ormond's army were actually English. People who know, if you know anything about the history of this period, like in Drogheda, the soldiers who got massacred in Drogheda, they were actually English. So, since they were English, many of them were actually given quarter. Unlike most battles at this period, if it was parliamentarians against Gaelic Irish, they would just slaughter them. So, in this case, no, because a large part of the army were Protestant English, or maybe Catholic English. They were actually well treated. But it was a disaster of battle for Ormond. Ormond, as a general, leaves a hell of a lot to be desired. He made a complete mess here. He was in a considerable advantage. Basically, if he'd moved a bit faster, had a bit more resolve, a bit more determination, and had pressed the siege, he could have captured Dublin. As well as the fact he shouldn't have surrendered Dublin to the parliamentarians in the first place. But the defeat here basically ensured that Cromwell could land in Dublin, making things much easier for him. If Ormond had won, if he had managed to capture Dublin, which he could have, Cromwell wouldn't have been able to land here, which would have made things much more difficult for him because he had a large army and it needed a huge amount of supplies. Ireland at this stage, it was suffering from, the wars had been going on for 8 years, and in this period of history, having war near you meant there was going to be a shortage of food, famine, and a large amount of disease. So Ireland was suffering. There was no way that they could support a British another army. The armies that were present in Ireland were already suffering from lack of supplies. So if Ormond had captured Dublin, Cromwell would have had faced a much more difficult situation in Ireland. Unfortunately, to say the least, Ormond made a complete and utter mess of it. Okay, I'm getting some comments. Hi, Wayne. It's a great place for walking around. Some nice pubs. Waterloo. Well, there were nice pubs when I was a student, which was a long time ago. Searson's and the Waterloo House were very nice. And if you turn left, head into town, or some, I think they're still nice. Someone's asking for a shout out. James does. I'm not wearing my reading glasses. I can't read. So hi, James. And Chris. Basically, it was an English battle. English on one side, and I'm not sure, there were some Irish on the other side, but yeah, there was a lot of English on both sides. It's very confusing, the 1640s, in terms of the makeup of armies, who's fighting with who, because there were a lot of alliances that broke down, etc. But it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was fully an English battle, but to a large extent. So that's basically the Battle of Rathmines. So I hope you liked the live. Now, I'm going to try and do something else. I'm about 10-15 minutes or less away from Mount Street Bridge, which was very important in 1916. So I'm going to finish this live, and then I'm going to head down there towards Mount Street Bridge, Northumberland Road, and I'll do a very quick live from there just to show you the fighting around there. So thanks for watching. So just to show you again, that was once a castle. The castle is long gone. So Gura Mahagud, and if you're around in about 15 minutes, I'll be back on live. Thank you very much.